Hey everybody, I'm Oakley at Oakley Does Everything, and today we're going to make Jaune sword from the show Ruby. Stay tuned. So the first thing you're going to need to make the sword is a 2x4. If you have a 1x4, that might be a little bit better even, because I don't need it to be this thick. I'm just going to whittle it away to the thickness that I want it, but 2x4s are easy to get, and I have an extra. So I'm going to use a 2x4. And before I go ahead and start getting that to the correct dimensions, I'm going to put my blueprint together and glue it onto my 2x4. Alright, and there we have our blueprint sword. Looks pretty good, I think. If you want a copy of this blueprint, just shoot me a message and I'd be happy to help you out with that. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and glue our blueprint onto our material. And I'm just going to be using a Contact 77 spray. Just let that dry for a couple minutes in between and then just stick it on to each other. Alright, now just to give ourselves some more workable space, I'm going to go ahead and cut off my 2x4 just a couple inches past the end of the blade. And now for this particular part of it, I don't need the cross guard, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim it off. Hey everybody, I'm just jumping in real fast. I know that a lot of you watch these videos without subscribing, so if you are one of those people that hasn't subscribed, hit that button. It's right there. I would very much appreciate it. Back to the build. So right now I have this blank, and we're going to go ahead kind of trim this down to the edges of it because I don't need all this excess on either side. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. You can do this a couple ways. I'm going to try a couple passes with the hand plane, and depending on how well that goes, I might just take it to the table saw. Alright, so I have planed down the profile, the side profile of my blade. It's not exactly to the width, it's just a little bit outside of it, but now I have this situated on my bench so that now I'm going to go ahead and cut down on some of the thickness here. This is about 1.5 inches wide, and I want a little bit more than half of that thickness. So I'm going to go ahead and start hand planing on this side of it now. Alright, so I have the profile, the side profile, the angular profile, the slants for my blade. It's pretty good. The hand plane worked fairly well. By the end of it, I need to sharpen that blade, but I just kind of finish it up. So that's why it looks kind of rough in a lot of spots. It's pretty straight already. So I'm going to try and maintain as much straightness as I can and just bevel this down to the edges. I have my belt sander here. I'm going to switch to an 80 grit if I don't have 80 grit on there already. Make sure I have my respirator on and then get to sanding. Here's our blade after we have sanded it down to the correct profile. And as you can see, there are some spots like here There's a hole in the wood over here. Just kind of spots here and there throughout the whole thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this quick seal and put it on there similar to like a Bondo, fill in some of those pits and whatnot, and then smooth that, sand it later. And so we're going to go ahead and put the quick seal on here, let it dry for a little while, hour or two or something like that. We're gonna put it on, sand it off, put it on, sand it off until it is ready to go. And while that is curing, we're gonna go ahead and start working on the crossguard. So I have this piece for my crossguard, and I flattened one side completely out down here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this on a drill press. I'm gonna find as close to center as I can on the opposite side. I'm gonna drill a hole all the way through this. I have a long 1/4 inch drill bit. I'm gonna go all the way through there, and once I get that lined up, I'll stick a fiberglass rod through here, and that's going to connect the blade to the hilt to the handle. Once I get that straight, I will then take a piece of my blueprint from my sword crossguard, and then I'll put that as straight as possible with that line that I can, and then that way I will have it nice and true, and then we could go ahead and start shaping the crossguard. So this is the fiberglass rod that I'm going to be using to connect the handle to the crossguard to the blade, and this is 5/16. Now I'm going to take that 1/4 inch hole that I drilled out of this, I'm going to expand upon it so that this can fit on it. So again, this is 5/16, so I'm going to drill out a 5/16 hole to that. You may be using other means of connecting your pieces, but this is how I am using mine. Alright, so this is the block of wood that I'm going to be using for my crossguard, and now I'm taking my blueprint and I'm lining this up as straight as I can, that way to make sure that it's going to be perfectly symmetrical when we actually go to put the blade on. I'm going to go ahead and put some Super 80 on here and glue the blueprint to the wood, and then we'll lay it out and start shaping it. Alright, it's been a couple minutes, so we're going to go ahead and carefully put this on as straight as we can. I think that'll do. Now this surface isn't perfectly smooth, but this should stay on regardless. Alright, so now we're going to pull this rod out, and we are going to go ahead and trim this up. That way we don't have to sand all this and save some material. So the point I'm at so far is I've gotten the rough shape of my crossguard, and I think it's looking pretty good. Unfortunately, my oscillating sander must have a higher grit sandpaper for it, because it's taken me quite a while to kind of eat through that. We out there still got a bit more shaping to do with it. We're not just going to leave it flat. We're going to do some curving and whatnot. But before we do that, we actually want to go ahead and fit the space where the blade goes into the crossguard. So I need to get my blade to the correct length. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off at 34 inches, and then I'm going to go ahead and start fitting this into here. Now you can do this a couple ways. You could just shape this to this and have it fit over top of that. I don't really want to do that. I'm actually going to make the blade go into the crossguard. And so we're going to cut this to length and then go ahead and start fitting it in. So what I just did is I found the center point of there. I'm going to drill a hole the same width as my fiberglass rod down here. Not very deep, maybe 1.5 inches or so. And then we're going to epoxy it into that. And we'll see how it lined up. That's pretty good. We're gonna put some epoxy in here, and then we will let that dry and come back and start fitting the crossguard. So here we have our blade and crossguard fitted to each other. As you can see, there is a little bit of gap down here where it comes together, and that's okay because that's going to be filled up with either epoxy or quick seal or whatever it is, something to fill in those gaps, so we're not too worried about that. It fits really well, it is snug, real pleased with that. I ended up finishing up with a Dremel router, just kind of freehanding it, and it worked pretty well. Wish I had thought about that sooner. Now we're going to go ahead and drill a hole into this wooden dowel over here, so that way we can put our handle on our sword. Alright, now we just need the correct length of our handle. So looking at reference photos, the handle is long enough that he can hold it with both hands. I'm going to do down to here, however long that is. I'd say that's pretty good. Now we need to work on our crossguard a little bit more, do a lot of shaping with it. I'm going to be using the belt sander and just kind of giving some curves to it, just making it look a little bit nicer, cleaner, and yeah, so that's what we are going to be doing next. Alright, so I have this sanded down to 220. Probably doesn't need to be that high of grit, but that's okay, because we're going to paint it in the end. But before we paint it, we're going to go ahead and embellish it with our carvings on it. And here we have it. I'm just going to take these and tape them with some Scotch tape. And I'm going to take my utility knife, and I am going to, I haven't yet decided, I'm either going to go ahead and use my Dremel to just kind of engrave what is there, or I'm going to use my chisel to just kind of gouge them out. Haven't decided yet, but we're going to go ahead and tape on, and you'll obviously see what I end up doing. Alright, so the last thing we need to shape is actually the pommel for the end of our sword handle, and I'm just going to use a piece of pine for that. I made a circle with a pair of my compass that I have, and I'm just going to cut this out to get as close to it as I can. Then I'm going to take my sander and shape it out as best as I can to get a nice circle. And then on the bottom side and the top side, they both have symmetrical curves, so I'm just going to go ahead and find a way to get that sanded to a good profile. Moving on to the shaping of the pommel, I have the correct width for this now. I'm going to measure from the bottom to the middle one, and then I'm going to take this width and apply it from onto the side. Okay, so there's my first line, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom to the top line. Okay, so I fitted our handle to our pommel with a rod, and now I'm going to go ahead and just draw a circle where that meets up. Alright, like so. So now I'm going to go ahead and start shaping from this circle on the bottom to my bottom line. So that's going to give our bottom side curve on the pommel. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and curve from the top to the opposite line. And that's going to give our top side round. And I'll probably be doing a mix of sandpaper as well as maybe some files. I have all the pieces of my sword ready to go, and so the pommel and the crossguard are going to be painted this gold, the same gold that I used to paint the trim on the armor of my Jaune cosplay. The handle is going to be this blue. I just have some engine paint, some high temp paint that I'll be using, mostly because it's what I have on hand and it's almost the exact color. And for the blade itself, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint it with a gloss black spray paint, and then I'm going to put a high gloss clear coat over top of it, and then we're going to put some graphite on it to make it look like an authentic metal blade. But you guys have seen things being painted before, so I'm not going to show it on camera. I am going to show you the blade part of it, but the process I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe these clean with a microfiber cloth. Then I'm going to put some primer on them, and then I'll put the paint on. So I'll see you guys back here in a minute, and these will be all painted. The next thing I need to do on my sword, I need to make the little ornamental pieces that go on the handle that are below the crossguard. I have no idea what they're called, but it's what I need to make, and I'm just going to make some of that out of some scrap maple. So I'm going to take it to my table saw, cut a few slices, and see where I can get with it. I'm going to make a total of 8 pieces that I can go all the way around with it. Alright, so the last bit of painting that we need to do is we need to paint our accent pieces that gold color, which is going to be the same color as our crossguard and our pommel, which is over there. There's also like a very small gold line that goes down the center of the blade of the sword. So we're going to go ahead and take some of our painter's tape that off carefully, and have a nice accent going down the middle of that as well. Alright, so we only have 2 steps left in our project. The first one is assembling, so we're going to be using a 5-minute 2-part epoxy to put all the large pieces together, and I think we're going to be using some super glue to attach our accent pieces to the handle. So let's go ahead and do the glue up. That's going to be it for this week's build. Thank you all so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. If you want to see more content about this Jaune cosplay, I have a playlist right over here for you to check out. And if you're new to the channel and you haven't done so yet, please hit that subscribe button. That really helps the channel out a lot. And until next week, I'll see you on the next build. Have a great day.